Utes are big business these days and they don't get a whole lot bigger than this. It is the Chevy Silverado, one of the huge American trucks, and we're increasingly seeing more of these sorts of things on Australian roads. People love them for work duties, for carrying things, and of course for towing. These trucks have been coming into Australia for years, converted locally and sold through independent outlets in very small numbers. But this Silverado is a bit different. It's been sold through selected Holden dealerships and it's converted locally by the Walkinshaw Group, the same people responsible for Holden Special Vehicles, HSV. So it is top shelf engineering and they have access to the Chevrolet factory in America. You get that once you start poring over the car. There's not a whole lot in here to suggest that the steering wheel was once on that side of the car. They've done a really nice job with things like the dash. There are a couple of giveaways. Things like the mirrors, they're popping out of their casings, so they've had to be re-angled to obviously account for the fact that the driver is on this side of the car. And another cool one, the indicator clicker. Now normally when you hit the indicator you can sort of hear it clicking around this area, but in this case, it's way over there. For the most part though, you are getting the full fruit Silverado experience, right down to its enormous tray. This thing's huge, you can comfortably fit a pallet in there. But despite all its brawniness and muscle and bigger is better approach, it's actually pretty weedy in terms of what it can carry. Now you've heard of 1 tonners, an old Holden, it'll take a ton. Your current crop of utes, most of them will take a ton or more. This guy, only 875 kilograms. What the? Ultimately though, the Silverado is about this, towing. Straight out of the box it'll tow 4.5 tons and you've got all the wiring, the electronic trailer brakes, the whole shebang. If you replace the traditional tow ball with a pintle, you can tow almost 5.9 tons. Now that is some serious heavy lifting. It is huge inside too. Even your biggest, ugliest mates aren't going to have a problem getting comfy back here. You've got heaps of legroom, loads of headroom, and you can comfortably fit 3 people across this broad rear bench seat. It's a shame it hasn't got rear air vents, but hey, I guess that's why they invented windows. Plus, you get an extra one. On the outside, the dimensions tell the story. It's more than 6 metres long, which is a slight issue given a standard car parking space in Australia is typically 5.4 metres. Plus, it's almost 2.4 metres wide and it stands 1985 millimetres tall, almost 2 metres. Plus, it's more than 2 metres wide and almost 2 metres tall. That means there'll be some underground car parks that you won't be able to drive into, maybe even the odd Macca's drive-through. That alone could turn some people off a Silverado. After all, who wants to do something crazy like walking to get a cheap hamburger? And that bigness is evident just about everywhere, including the bonnet. Now I'm not a small bloke, but this thing dead set almost comes up to my chest. And you can blame it on what's underneath, a whopping 6.6 litre turbo diesel V8. Now it's pretty powerful, you're looking at 332 kilowatts, but the emphasis is actually on torque or pulling power, which is measured in Newton metres. Now to put it in perspective, your average small car might have a couple of hundred Newton metres. A performance car maybe 400 or 500, a Land Cruiser V8 turbo diesel 650, and a supercar maybe 700 or 800. This bad boy trounces a lot, you're looking at 1234. Yep, 1,234 Newton metres. Fire it up and there's a nice old school roar going on there, and plenty of diesel noise generally, although I guess you sort of expect that. It's in keeping with the nature of the car. Loud. Now nothing modern about how you select a gear. It's good old stalk selection and a bit of a pain in terms of the foot operated park brake. It drives through an Allison transmission, a truck transmission, 6 speeds, automatic, and what it does a terrific job of is harnessing all that torque. You step on it and it surges with intent. And you can see why the Americans refer to these things as trucks. There's not a whole lot in traffic here that I'm not at least level with, and in most cases well above. You are sitting seriously high. The good news is a lot of cars get out of your way. And the steering, it does take a little while to respond, so you've got to put in not only a decent movement, but sometimes think just a second or two ahead of where you want to be. Now that size, that heft, does create challenges when it comes time to park. Now you do have a camera and parking sensors front and rear, and there's a pretty nifty feature that vibrates the seat when you get a bit too close to something, so it's sort of good to have a few more eyes on what's going on. It also pays to know your limitations. There are some roundabouts this thing just won't get around. You have to bail out halfway in. Blame that on the turning circle. You're looking at 15.7 metres. That is big. This version I'm in is designed to go off-road, and as such it's got some fairly chunky off-road tyres, and you notice them once you start driving. 50, 60, 70 k's an hour, you get this bit of a harmonic going that can get a little bit annoying. When you're looking at vehicles this sort of size, you can usually throw big bucks into the equation, and it's no different with the Silverado. The starting price, you're looking at about $115,000, but that's for the WT version, the work truck, and it's pretty basically equipped. By the time you get up to the LTZ, which throws a lot more luxury features into the equation, you're looking at about another 20 grand. And once you get into this version, the Midnight Edition, which has got blacked out everything and a few more creature comforts, you're looking at the best part of 150 grand. Ouch. So where does that leave the mighty Silverado 2500? Well, clearly you're not going to buy it as an around town runabout. It's simply overcapitalising. And on top of that, it ain't much fun to wrestle around the suburbs. Similarly, if you've got to lift really heavy things, there are probably better vehicles for the job. But if you've just bought a boat that's bigger than your average Sydney ferry, or a caravan that's larger than a hotel room, then this is absolutely the vehicle for you. That V8 turbo diesel is a weapon. You get the impression not a whole lot is going to stop that.